Hi everyone. My message this week is a bit bittersweet. It is, after all, our final week. This week we have, of course, been looking for most of you ahead at evaluation of data and the communication of research. There was also a bit of a reminder to make sure that you are maintaining a rigorous approach to your research. And all I mean here is that you have systems in place to manage your research and that you think critically and reflect and interrogate your choices along the way, including research methods and creative decision making. It is also really useful to return to your research questions at different intervals and revise them in line with what you've done and your preliminary findings. In terms of the poll, it seems that there are a few participants that have not really thought too much about publications outlets yet. That is completely fine, and when I started, I didn't either. After all, you're just getting your head around the general expectations of the degree and, of course, your project. As you progress, it is going to be valuable, though, to think it over and to start to identify ways that you can not only share your research, but also build networks in your field. As you get started, there are a few ways that you can do this. You can always just start with a simple keyword search to find relevant organisations, journals and other events such as conferences or even reading groups. For example, in my case, art, science and conference will yield a few relevant results, but like all your searches, you'll need to test different keyword combinations and see what works. Sometimes also you really don't know which research areas intersect with your project and interests. For example, I was contacted by the Queer Death Studies Network and was really thrilled to be introduced to a totally new field that I had no idea about, but that had lots of connections to my work. When looking for conferences, using the year 2020 or 2021 will also narrow the search so that you're not seeing past events, although this can still be really useful to get a sense of annual conferences. You can do the same for organisations in terms of searching. So just start simply like with some keywords like art, science and network, and that will again bring up a number of relevant organisations. I might of course want to limit my search to Australia and then again use different combinations to find more nuanced connections. And don't worry if you're not really sure which organisations are directly applicable at the start. You'll really start to notice the same names popping up again and again as you go on. In terms of conferences, you can use Conference Alert and conference sites to find relevant events, but I must admit that I really use these and have not found it a very good way for identifying conferences in my area. I tend to follow organisations via social media or to look for specific events relevant to my current projects. My colleagues and friends also email me when they see something that links directly to my research or areas of interest. So word of mouth and networks are again key. With regards to journal publications, take note of the journals that you are currently reading. Also think about where your peers and leaders in the field are publishing. What are the top tier or widely accessed journals for your discipline? Note that the journal that you will select will also depend on the topic of the paper that you are writing. Sometimes you might write a paper in response to a specific call out, whereas other times you might have a paper already in mind and then you need to identify a suitable outlet. Your supervisors here will be key to guide you, but make sure that you give them information and time to think. That is where providing an agenda with info and questions prior to your meeting will prompt your supervisors to think beforehand and be able to provide some suggestions for you. Peers, research networks and other organisations are useful once again. Along with building networks and identifying the key organisations, events and publications relevant to your research, it is also really useful to consider your public and research profile. Most academics are now required to have an ORCID ID that lists publications, which can also, of course, include creative research outputs, and this has been linked to the ARC application platform. It is not essential that you set this up, but it will be something that you will learn more about as you progress, and it will be increasingly important if you decide to pursue an academic career. If you use social media and other online platforms to share your work, be mindful of how you present yourself and avoid the public-private crossover unless you are skilled at balancing these elements to bring a personal flair that does not compromise your integrity in some way. After all, you don't want to be perceived as a party booze hound in a research context. Finally, I would just like to thank you all for participating and sharing your research. It's really been a privilege to hear about your work. Also, congratulations on making it to the end of the module. I know that you've all been very busy, and I wish you the very, very best with your onward and upward HDR journey. If you're ever in home art, please let me know. I would love to show you around the art school. And on that note, bye for now.